Hi folks, here's the Hexen 2.0. See, I told you it wasn't worth $300. List prices, only 50. Hey folks, welcome to ScholarBot Tarot. Just call me Mayfield, and thanks a ton for stopping by the study space. So, how did this happen? Well, honestly, I have no idea, but it was the most low-key thing that I had ever experienced. So, for those of you who just kind of stumbled across this video, I released a video a while back on why the Hexen 2.0 just wasn't worth the exorbitant amount of dollars that was listed on eBay and other resellers. It was out of print at the time, so, fair. And I just really wanted to exercise negging a product with the intent to devalue it. It didn't work, of course, but what did work was a new edition being released. So we'll just get into that in just a moment. But for what we have right now, this is the new printing of the Hexen 2.0 by Suzanne Treister, and it was published by some group called Cosmogenesis. I think I said that correctly. They definitely seemed new, and at the time, their website certainly was. Although the vibe that I got from their site was also like late 2000s, but anyways. So in mid 2024, even though my regular like price sleuthing drastically slowed down, I did notice that there was a slight uptick of tarot users who are selling their first and second edition Hexen 2.0 decks at high yet slightly more accessible prices, like 100 and something bucks or what have you. I was feeling like it was a little sus, so I figured I'd check out Suzanne Treister's website, and there was the familiar blurb of, this deck is out of print, and you can find the first edition at this site for $1 bazillion. But also, below that, in just the tiniest print that you'd ever seen, the Hexen 2.0 will be reprinted in November 2024 by Cosmogenesis. One day I'll get their name right. But at that point, when I read that, I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. So it linked to the website, I clicked it, and it was partially empty. Just a black backdrop with a red search bar that prompts you to log in. So the website was not ready. And the website would certainly not be ready until much later. So no big deal, we wait. Mid-November arrives and I click the link. The website looks only a little different than it did when it was closed, but I scroll down and lo and behold, there's a listing for the Hexen 2.0, just hanging out. So I pre-ordered directly from the website, and I also pre-ordered some extra copies through thrift books just in case, and all three of them came in by February 2025, and I was very happy. So let's just get into the deck. So main differences are the backs and the text color on the box. So in previous editions, both the first and second edition of Hexen 2.0, the backs are black. Same mushroom cloud. I think the mushroom cloud might be a little bit smaller on your standard Hexen 2.0, but I wouldn't know. But it's not as like vibrant as what you're seeing here. This is definitely a lot more psychedelic. I'm uncertain as to which I would prefer, but I feel like it doesn't really matter because what's really important is what's on the actual cards. But first, let me talk just a quick little disclaimer on the text color on the box. So here you see Hexen 2.0 Tarot, Suzanne Treister. It is silver. It is a metallic silver. In the first edition, it is white, and in the second edition, it is red. Now, the reason why I'm emphasizing this so much is because I do want you to keep this in mind when perusing resellers of this deck. Now, I don't know that this is common practice anymore, but right when the deck released, there were some listings on eBay that I remember specifically thinking like, okay, so this is listed at $100, but that's very obviously the third edition that they're trying to sell at double the price as is listed. And this deck, as of this recording, is still available at really low prices. So it should still be accessible on various sites, and I think there's still like the standard listing on Barnes and Noble and such. So buyer beware. Okay. So one thing that I mainly wanted to do for this video, I've already given you so much information about, just kind of my experience in pursuing this new edition and showing some of the card specs, which, by the way, I don't think I specified. These cards are huge, and I think they've always been huge. Let me see if I can find a pencil real quick. Pencil. Okay, so this is a number 2 pencil right next to the deck, and it is definitely larger. This is important to remember, by the way. Okay, so my main objective for this video is to really like show you kind of how to read from it, or at least the way that I do it, because it's no secret that this deck is complicated. But thankfully it's not as complicated as, well, I guess we'll find out the hard way. So I have an entire like OneNote notebook on just notes for all the different parts of each card. So far I've gotten up to the 6th major, I think. I've gotten up to the Lover's card. So this deck does not have a guidebook, and that's been one of the most common complaints. Like, I checked thrift books quite a few minutes ago just to make sure that it was still available on their site, and it is still available, but I also took a quick glance at the reviews, and one of the reviews said, hey, this thing is missing a guidebook. And I'm like, unfortunately, it's not missing. The deck is the guidebook. For the most part, each card has a lot of text, which you can see, and is more often than not representative of a key person, a concept, or an event, or some combination of all three. So knowledge of that event will give you more insight into why it was attached to that particular card, and sometimes the entirety of the card should be your explanation. So with that said, all of the information that I received on each card, I just used Wikipedia and kind of connected the dots with, my pre-existing knowledge of the cards. So there is a bit of a learning curve for using this deck. Now, as just an exercise and a demonstration for what I have done for one of the cards, I'm going to show you the High Priestess. So let's get started. Let me grab that pencil actually, because I think this might be helpful. So as we can see, ton of details here. Let's see where we can get started. So a couple interesting details in this card. Let's just read the middle passage in the card first before getting into some of the points of interest. So middle passage right here. Evolving out of the militaristic economy of capitalist patriarchy in the aftermath of World War II, the U.S. government-funded Macy conferences sought to generate new connections between the natural science and social sciences. Macy conference attendees, consisting of mathematicians, psychologists, etc., there's a whole bunch that are listed here, developed the idea of cybernetics, the science of control and communication in the animal and the machine, in society and in individual human beings, as a model of understanding and controlling the world. So let's unpack that. So first phrase, on the militaristic economy of capitalist patriarchy, etc. So a lot of things are going on after World War II. During the war and post-war efforts, there were many domestic jobs that kept American citizens employed. After the war, deindustrialization began. No war, no need for those jobs, and many families lost their main source of income. The GI Bill allowed veterans to get an education and other benefits for serving. But despite these socialist services, capitalism was still, I guess, the gold standard in post-war America. Those are not my words necessarily, but that's just kind of what ended up happening. Second part, so the US utilizing nuclear weapons to end the war triggers this new discernment against the sciences. So before World War II, weapons in general were never really tied to science per se. Like, you don't really see a tank and think, yeah, a scientist made that. You think the military made that. During the interwar period in particular, the sciences were supposed to be this field of study that would make life better or more quirky. So, like the famous Chicago World Fair in 1932 was the pinnacle of this assumption. 1945 waltzes its way into the arena, and suddenly scientists are responsible for weapons of mass destruction. I mean, which is true, but now the public fully recognizes scientists as these as I mean these, I guess, warmongers, for lack of a better term. So while this isn't directly related to the Macy conferences, I do find this context relevant because the purpose of the Macy conferences were to reunify the sciences and create a discourse across disciplines. And I would argue that they were trying to bring in this new legitimacy to sciences after such a blow to their reputation. So the dates at the top here, that's 1946 and 1953, those are specific to the cybernetics portion of the conferences, as the Macy conferences were actually held from 1941 to 1960. Now the third part, interestingly, Treister notes Norbert Wiener's definition of cybernetics, which if I ever do like more little white book dissections on any of the other cards, like we'll chat about Wiener later. I want to say he's the hermit, but I don't remember. But at any rate, for now, his definition centers like control, as opposed to the conference definition, which has been banished to the corner of the card. The study of circular, causal, and feedback mechanisms in biological and social systems. Now, personally, I think my favorite definition is the most digestible, from Soviet mathematician Andrei Kolmogorov. The study of systems of any nature which are capable of receiving, storing, and processing information so as to use it for control. A happy medium that allows us layfolk to understand. So, knowing this, I do find that it is a little odd to assign the Macy conferences to the High Priestess, but I suppose we can make some interpretations to make this work. So off to the side of the cards, here and here, we see the roster of scientists and other experts who attended, and we also see the buildings that they took place in. But with regards to the people that we see here, so it's context here, but the way that we define cybernetics is something that only can be adequately discussed among several schools of thought. So you need to have the appropriate inner tools to interact with cybernetics or connect with someone else to do so. Because cybernetics, in so many words, is the study of communication and collaboration across sentient beings. So take that what you will for the context of the High Priestess in the Hexen 2.0. Man, that was an exercise. And just to reiterate, like all of this information, like I mainly got from Wikipedia, and I also have like some knowledge from my master's program. There was a book that I read from, I think the author's name is like David Nye, and oh no, do I not remember what the book is called? Um, it's like the technological Sublime or something like that. If I can find it, or I'll just look it up and I'll put it in the description below, just as a reference that I'm using. But it was honestly like it's hard to get through, but it was one of my favorites. Oh, yeah, I have it in my. Yeah, let me just show it to you. Hopefully you can see it okay. So this is the American Technological Sublime by David E. Nye. And this does have like a whole chapter dedicated to the World's Fair. And it also has a chapter dedicated to the atomic bomb and like the Apollo 11, which is largely where I'm getting, that idea of like, of scientists, kind of having a break in their reputation. So let's kind of go back to the way that one might use this deck, because it is pretty, like, it's dense, yes, but it's also a little niche. I feel like. So as stated earlier, these cards are large and they're very text heavy, and they can be intellectually overwhelming. See, there's Wiener. He wasn't the hermit, he was the chariot. Any hoosers. I personally wouldn't recommend any more than like 2 card spreads for this deck. If you have this deck and you do a larger number of pulls, I would love to hear your experience, and kudos to you. My brain would blow a fuse. But I feel like this deck is best used as just a way to depict a scenario or alternative perspective. I feel like I've had really good results from pairing it with the Deleted World Tarot by Joshua Urban Davis, because I feel like the themes feel very similar. Although I do also think that the Hexen 2.0 would look really solid next to your standard RWS or Marseille deck. And I mean, it works just fine, just pulling a single card from the Hexen 2.0 and then pulling a couple cards for added context has really been a productive experience for me. I would also kind of say finally that I generally use the Hexen 2.0 for larger scaled simulations about community, politics, and general societal well-being. So that's been fun to kind of get into this. You'll probably notice at this point that these cards I think are still in order. Every once in a while, like, I'll just kind of put them in order so I can continue actually studying the deck. I have not gotten very far since I've been incredibly preoccupied. However, it's still a project that that I'm interested in pursuing. And every once in a while, I'll just say, screw this noise. Let's just put it into practice, and I'll do a quick reading. I don't have the spoons to give you a sample reading right now because it is the afternoon, and I'm kind of done with politics, just for the day. Who knows? Maybe I'll do that in a future video if you're interested in seeing more breakdowns of each of the cards, or if there's a particular card that you're curious about, then maybe I'll try my hand at that. But thank you so much for joining me in this pretty short video. Really grateful that you made it to the end. As per usual, we on this channel make discourse and not war, so feel free to share with me your thoughts on this deck, how one might use it, and all of that fantastic stuff. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!